Let's welcome Opeyemi. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Edmond. Thanks again, Edmond. And so typically today we'll be looking at AI-Augmented Tester, which is typically talking about balancing human intuition and machine intelligence, right, in modern quality assurance. There's been a lot of buzz and, a lot of questions around what's the future of software testing, what's the future of quality assurance in general. So today we would typically explore some of these questions. I may not necessarily have all the answers to your question or whatever it is that you have in mind, but I would also try and answer some of the question. My name is Olugunojin. I currently head the testing and quality assurance team of Union Bank in Nigeria. I've spent a couple months into years sort of researching into how we can best utilize artificial intelligence in software testing. And I mean, I've been able to come up with a couple things. And so this will kind of make this very interesting. So I'll be sharing some of the things I've done. And I mean, we can all learn together. All right. So I thought to put a sort of disclaimer that the content of these slides that you're about to see is subjective, absolutely subjective, and they are strictly based on my view and my research, right? So I thought to put that first so that we're all very clear. Okay, so let's get into it. The introduction to this is AI is really reshaping quality assurance, and it's not just about quality assurance, it's really every sector, as it were. Even within the software development, the software development lifecycle as a whole, talking about requirement gathering, AI is doing fantastic work in that space. In software development, AI is doing like an absolute of vendors work in that space, and even in quality assurance, AI is doing excellent. Both functional and non-functional testing. You can now leverage AI for any of these things, right? And so it's very important that we talk about it. I mean, you can embed AI even into your CI/CD pipeline. We can put it in our test frameworks, across the entire SDLC. AI is, having, so it's not just a buzzword again. It's our reality. It's our new reality, and we have to embrace it. And again, like I tell people, the early we embrace AI, the better for us. So then the goal really is we want to explore the efficiency of AI. Then we also look at the human insight and see how we can balance these two things together. And I mean, for the end goal is for experienced QA and engineers, what do we need to do, going forward? That's typically what we'll be speaking about. So let's go into where AI shines in testing today. I mean, the good thing is Splash already did a fantastic work of, telling us on how you can use MCP for testing, either especially the agentic aspect of things, where you can actually use AI to run testing, right? And even beyond that, you can use AI for just your regular test generation. Either you are using, say, a ChatGPT or whatever Copilot, whatever AI, generative AI you have in the market there. You can just feed it user stories. You can feed it images. You can feed it Figma designs. You can feed it whatever it is, and it's able to generate for you test cases. As a matter of fact, you can also connect it to your whatever tool you are using to manage your project. I mean, I've done some work in the past where I typically connect it to, say, a Jira, for instance, and I'm able to generate test cases based on the user story, that I have on both Jira and Azure, as it were, right? So again, the possibility are limitless on what you can use it for, especially when it comes to generating your test cases. And you know, these days we can also just plug into your models directly, like we saw earlier. Spark showed us how that can actually happen. And even beyond that, there's also the self-healing script, right? Where in the past, where you write your automation script, once the developer push, you know, new code, and say an element has changed from the front end, for instance, what happens is your test breaks, right? So you would have to then go into script maintenance. You have to go change that particular element so that you know your testing can, you know, continue to pass. With self-healing script, you don't necessarily have to do that. The AI is able to crawl into it and is able to, you know, get you the new element, and your test continues to run. Now, that's a capability that has really changed the game for automation testing. I know for a fact that Playwright has that capability. I've tried to explore that with Cypress, but well, again, like I said, it's subjective. If you have tried it and it worked for Cypress, I would love to get that feedback. But I've tried it for Playwright and it did work. So again, it just makes the work easy for quality assurance engineers, for testers alike. And you know, so from there, we also have explored AI in terms of predictive analysis. So it typically helps you with defect clustering. So you're able to know where to concentrate your testing on. It's able to predict the likelihood places where you can find bugs, right? Especially when you want to do your regression, right? So these are things that AI is able to help us achieve. And finally, for generating data, I mean, it's just to prompt it to say, hey, I need XYZ number of data. And, you know, AI is able to, now, beyond just generating data, it typically helps you to generate data that, you know, sort of matches with the exact use case, you know, that you want to test for, right? So these are some of the places where, again, this might be more, but we're just talking about the places that, you know, currently we're seeing the dominance of AI, you know, over what human would do. And the interesting thing about this is all of these processes, if you were to run them as human, beyond the self-healing, for instance, it will take you a lot of man hour, right? But with AI, in less than a couple minutes, all of these things are done, right? So these are typically where AI still shines today. And yes, the next slide, we'll see the interesting part. And that's where humans still sort of outperforms AI today. It's let me put this out there first, right? That there is always a question of, will AI replace testers? I think that the best way I would answer that question, or the best way I would love to have, you know, asked that question is, can AI replace testers? Now, the real answer for me, and like I said, this is very subjective. The AI can replace testers. Hold up before you come to judge me, and I'll tell you why I said so. Most of the things that we do today, we've seen that it is really possible for AI to do them. But the other question of, will AI replace tester? Well, maybe in the future that we don't know yet, maybe it will be possible. But in the future that we are now, or the future that we're looking at, as it were, maybe it might not necessarily outperform human. And that's based on the fact that there is still the human touch to testing, right? So sometimes when you test an application, beyond the requirement document, because again, for an AI to test, AI would look at, say, the user story of the requirements, and is writing, is getting its own test cases off of whatever data that is already provided. But as human, when you test an application, there is that part of I know what to expect as human. When I click on this button, for instance, I have an idea of what it is that I expect this button to do for me. Or when I look at a particular text, I know that this is not the way this text is supposed to look like. For instance, I'm seeing font that is very tiny in an application, and I know for a fact that for human experience, for customer experience, this is not very ideal. So as human, I can tell you that, oh no, you need to increase the font size, or you need to change this font, for instance. So it goes beyond the functionality. There are other things that, there are some logic that as human, you think in your head that this is the way this application is supposed to perform. I mean, for experienced testers, experienced quality assurance engineers on the call, you find that a lot of times you get to even question the requirement document. So business could say that, because let's get this very clear. Business would write requirements to solve their problem, right? But developers would implement in a way that they feel would solve that problem in some cases. Now, as quality assurance engineers or as testers, when you're testing an application, you are bringing that, not just the judgment of the requirement alone, you're also looking at how best can the customer appreciate what it is that you are giving to them as solution, right? So that's where the human touch, the human feel, the human intuition comes to play, right? So there is that part that currently AI would not be able to solve, right? So AI lacks empathy. I mean, like I stated earlier about fonts, for instance, the customer experience. AI would not necessarily look at the customer experience. AI would just look at whatever data is available for it to test with, and then it would, present its report strictly based off on the data available for it to work with, right? But human would still put that empathy. Then, of course, human would also look at the business awareness side of things, right? Human will look at the ethical judgment. I give you an instance where, so some couple things that some, so you have, say, some set of people that when you say stuff in a particular way, they find it very offensive, right? But you as human, you can look at it and say, oh, if we go forward with this, this set of people might find this, they might find it offensive, right? Why not you do it in this certain way? But hey, AI will just typically look at it and say, as long as it's fine functionally, we're good to go to the market. And of course, you get to the market, you get backlash, right? So these are some of the areas that human would still dominate software testing. But the future is the hybrid model, right? Where we can then leverage AI and the human touch, right? So the AI, we've seen that AI is able to do these fantastic things. AI is able to generate interesting test cases. As a matter of fact, test cases that even as human, you might not necessarily think about it. We talk about the edge cases that AI is able to generate. You look at the negative scenarios that AI is able to generate, things that you might not necessarily come up with in your head, right? We've seen that. We've seen that capability. We've even seen the capability of agentic AI being able to, by itself run tests. And of course, we've also talked about the human side of things, right? We've looked at the human having business context. We've looked at human having that ethical touch. We've also talked about human, having some level of sense of judgment that AI might not necessarily have. So the next thing is, how can we then marry these two things together, right? Because ultimately, the goal of every quality assurance phase is so that the whatever it is that the business has requested for is equal to what it is that has been implemented, right? And the new way of work, right, especially in agile, methodology, is really about speed to market, right? How best can we quickly, deliver this software product? How best can we quickly, go to the market? Now, to solve that, and I give you an analogy, right? If you are a business owner, you're looking to employ people to your business. If you have someone that is able to leverage the AI capabilities, and you have someone that is not able to leverage the AI capability, meanwhile, knowing fully well that with the AI capability, you probably get your testing done in 2 hours, but without the AI capability, you get it done in, say, 8 hours. Obviously, for business owner, you would go with the guy that will get it done in 2 hours, right? And so that's why it's very important that we have this hybrid model where every quality assurance engineer is able to leverage the capabilities of artificial intelligence, right? And that's really the essence of having this conversation, because it's not just the buzzword again, it's our reality. It is the new reality. AI is here to stay, and it has come to stay, right? So the best thing is us as professionals being able to leverage the capability, right? So we've talked about the fact that, I've mentioned the fact that AI is able to do automation, human is able to, put that test into it, right? And eventually we have an expanded coverage, right? So, I just sort of wanting to spotlight some of the pitfalls, right? If you leverage just AI, right? There is the missed business nuance. I've sort of touched on, and I used where you have to. Okay, so one of the things I said earlier was, if you have an application that you're targeting, say, certain markets, right? But in that market, there are a set of people that, when they see certain feature or they see certain thing in your application, they might not accept it, right? It could be for ethical reason, it could be for religious reason, it could be for whatever reason, right? Now, if you leverage AI full time to run your test, you stand a chance of that product being a dead on arrival, right? Because by the time it gets to the hand of this set of people, they find your application very offensive, right? But AI would not see this. AI would just look at the functional part of the application, whatever it is that you've defined for AI, and then it will just, pass it, and you launch your market thinking that you've saved time, you've cut off the human, whatever, and then you go to the market, then there's that backlash, right? So it's like a dead on arrival. And of course, there's also the skill degradation. We cannot stress this enough. And I don't know if this happens to every other person on the call, but for me today, once I type my mail, it's as simple as typing mail. I put it on either Copilot or GPT, and then I tell it to, refine it in whatever way I want it to refine it. What is happening to me, and I'm sure it's happening to a lot of people, is that human touch where you come back to reread your mail, you get to fine tune your mail, you get to, learn words, explore your dictionary to be sure that you're typing the correct thing, you're typing the correct word, you're using the correct sentence. These things that makes you human, that makes you yearn for knowledge, things that makes you want to read. You want to pick up literature because you want to enhance your literature skill. All of these things are dying because I don't need to do all of that. I just need to um, take it to GPT or whatever it is, and it gives the best of response for me. Let's bring it home, right, to software testing. In the past, where, for instance, I'm trying to automate, I know for if you started testing early enough, we used to have an issue, I think, on Selenium back then, when you want to, I think the common issue at the time is when you're trying to scroll. I know, yes, eventually we're able to get some workaround, and it used to be a big challenge way back in the days, right? And what that sort of, it was a challenge for a lot of us, right? We started, making research. You'd find ways, best way to do things. You are, literally on different resources. You're trying to get this and that all together. But hey, these days, you do not need to do any of that. You just need the AI to generate the script for you, and you just run it. So what that means in a nutshell is the human skill is dying. The over reliance on AI would lead to a lot of people not knowing jack. And I say that with every sense of, whatever sense you can think of, right? And I fear the most for the junior quality assurance engineers, the junior testers. Over reliance on AI would make you, yes, you would deliver, right? But the real question is, if you are to defend what you have delivered, can you? The answer is obviously not. You cannot defend what it is that you've delivered. So, and that's why, as much as possible, we need to balance, these two things. And on the right side, we look at the regulatory blind spot, right? AI generated cases would mostly miss some critical edge cases that are peculiar to, say, regulatory. In Nigeria, where I come from, I work in financial sector, for instance, where we have regulators, right? These regulations come like on whatever basis that the regulators deem required, right? So there is that part of, the testing where, as a QA engineer, you have to be up to date with regulations. And so when you're running your tests, you are ensuring that you are compliant with whatever it is that the regulators has asked for, right? So again, these are just some of the things that, and we find real life scenarios. You can go online and look for, some of the downfalls that AI has, right? So I won't want to waste our time or bore us with all of these pitfalls. But the real thing is, what should QA leaders do, right? And we need to do that now, and because we're beginning to see a decline. And even for, and I'm not saying this um, based on guess. I'm saying this based on even the things that I feel as a practitioner in the quality assurance space, right? So what we need to do to ensure that we balance up this artificial intelligence that comes to stay anyways with the human touch, right? Number one is ensure that all our testers are upskilled, right? It's not something that we can just take with a levity, and it's something that we need to necessarily do as a matter of urgency, right? We need testers to have the basic knowledge on how to leverage AI in whatever it is they do, and of course, they being able to prompt, right? How to better do prompt engineering such that you get the desired result in whatever it is that you want to do. And if you want to leverage, say, like Spash showed us earlier, you want to leverage agentic AI for, say, either regression or for your test execution. It's important that we have our testers up to date with these skills, and then once they have this skill, we can then begin to appreciate the value that AI and the human intelligence brings into the quality assurance space, right? There's also the implement validation, a robust framework, AI validation framework, right? And I like one of the things that Spash mentioned earlier, that some of the scripts generated by AI is subjective. And I know that even most of the generative AI frameworks will tell you that whatever it is that they generated is not foolproof. Is subject to some errors because it's learning from data that you and I are, passing to it on a daily basis, right? So it's very important that we have a framework that sort of checks whatever it is that AI is generating so that we don't put ourselves into trouble, right? So meaning that, yes, we rely on AI to do certain things for us. But whilst we are doing that, we also have a framework to ensure that whatever it is AI has generated is correct, right? It's something that works, and not just works, but work for our organization, right? So it's very important that we have that balance. Then, of course, we need to utilize AI as a tool, not as a full replacement. I have said that before, and let me repeat that. We need to see AI as an assistant. It's a tool and not human. The role is not to replace human. Again, let me go back to the question I asked before. Can AI replace testers? Now, AI can replace tester under certain conditions, right? But will AI replace testers? My sincere answer to that is I don't think so at this point in time. And for reasons that I've stated, before. And so we need to start seeing AI as something that, yes, has the potential. It's a good to have. As a matter of fact, is important to have, but it is not to replace human, because there is that human touch, especially for certain businesses, that you must still have. But my worry essentially, and that one of the reasons why it's important for testers to get upskilled, is machine learning has the capability to learn over the years with a lot of data that we feed it. Meaning that some of these capabilities that we think that are maybe not necessarily possible for now could be possible in the future, right? But you, as a QA engineer that already understands and knows how to leverage AI, will definitely have the edge. But if you as a QA engineer refuse to upskill yourself, then when that time comes, you would become irrelevant in the market, right? And so that's why it's important you get upskilled, right? Even if we're seeing it as a tool, you must learn it, right? And the last thing here is retain oversight. We need to still ensure that human is in charge, right? Human triggers the execution. Human initiates that validation framework to ensure that whatever it is AI has generated is correct and is applicable to our business. Because again, in your head, you'll be thinking when I said you need a framework to validate whatever it is that human has generated. You could then argue that why not just come up with an automated, framework to validate what AI has generated? But hey, meaning that you are still using AI to validate AI, right? Meaning you are still not solving the problem, right? But what we're preaching here is you should have human to oversight, to sort of have that control over whatever it is that the AI has generated for you, right? So that human essence is not essentially lost, right, in our test, right? Okay, so as I wrap up my presentation, AI has no skin in the game. Testers do. Refer back to my statement about AI is a tool. It is not to fully replace human, right? So yes, AI has a lot of positive impact in the game, but testers still should have that perfect control, right, over whatever it is that we're testing. AI won't replace tester. Tester using AI will replace those who don't. And that was what I said earlier, that AI, the role of AI in software testing is not to replace testers. But if you as a tester, or you call yourself QA engineers or whatever it is, if you refuse to upskill yourself in being able to leverage AI, I'm afraid that the people that knows how to leverage AI will replace you. And that future is not very far. The future is literally now. So the future of QA is human plus machine collaboration, right? And hey, that's what it is that I have come to preach, right? AI is a tool that has a lot of capabilities, but AI should not replace human. Humans should have a robust framework to validate whatever it is that AI has generated. Thank you for listening to my plenty speech. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
thank
and I totally agree with him. And part of the things I said earlier is, well, I would not necessarily, so, and that was why I used, instead of using will, I used can. Can AI replace? Yes, it can, given certain conditions. But will AI replace testers? It's debatable. However, I think that the real conversation here is you need to upskill or you are left out. It's that simple. AI has come to stay, and we cannot deny that, right? So we need to now be able to leverage AI. That's really it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Opay. And yeah, so you can see the comment, like a lot of people like share their feedback. Well done, great talk and everything. So thank you so much for presenting the great session about like AI and also like human touch. It is like really good to listen as well. And even like I'm not a technical person, but still I watched your all these slides, like it is like too good. Thank you for sharing the stage. If more questions come, like we will reach out to you. And
That's
also
fine.
like everyone, like as I already said, like if more question came, and we will dedicatedly like post the question and answer in our LinkedIn QA Touch official. Thank you so much.